Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I'm Miss Marisa and I'm your moderator for this session. Thank you for joining us in the Skor A English webinar organized by Bahagian Pendidikan Menengah Mara. So before I introduce our speaker for today, here's a few reminders. Number one, if you have any questions, do type it in the chat box. So please use your own names, college, and do not remain anonymous. Only those who use their own names stand a chance to win our giveaways. And second, do not post comments that may provoke others. Third, link to the feedback form will be shared in the chat box. So parents, teachers, and students, you may fill in the form. We highly appreciate your feedback. Number four, and final thing, most importantly, please do have fun and participate in all the activities. So let me introduce our speaker for today. We have Madam Allison Pauliya Amin from MRSM Muka. Our esteemed speaker is our own Guru Cemerlang Bahasa Inggris. She binge watches campy horror television series and also B-grade horror flicks. So she's a horror fan. She is a coffee enthusiast and also a cat person. So recently she has dived into spin class exercises and virtual runs. And ultimately, when she retires, she wants to be a proud owner of a cat cafe called Alice Cats. So please welcome my friend, Madam Allison, who will be speaking on her chosen topic titled Converse with Purpose. Welcome, Allison.
All right, thank you, Miss Marisa, for introducing me, and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. I hope you're all having a good day, and today we will be focusing on speaking and listening, ultimately working towards building your conversation skills to be able to converse with purpose. So you're not just talking blindly to each other, but you should be able to pick up some tools from today to help you develop how to respond to each other, how to encourage each other during a conversation. And hopefully this will help you in your speaking exam. I know for some of you, you have your speaking test coming up for your trials, or maybe for others, you have not had any practice. If you are outside of the MRSM system, if you are, from other schools, there are skills here today for you as well. If you're a parent or a teacher watching, you can also take the tools that I'll be sharing about today and adapt them as needed according to your students' needs or your children's needs. And these tools the slides will be shared in the Telegram group. We have a Telegram group for our Skor A program, and also some practice questions for speaking, which are based off the Form 5 syllabus. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into our webinar this afternoon, right? You are most welcome to ask questions in the chat as we progress, and I will try to answer them. I'll pop into the chat once in a while if our admin hasn't answered them already, or if there's something you want me to specifically answer. All right, so let's get started. Here we go. We converse with purpose. All right. So now in a conversation, you will notice that you actually need to have a push-pull action. When there's more than one person speaking, the other person needs to take turns to listen in order for that conversation to flow. So this is the main skill that I want to focus on today. We need to be able to speak and listen in a conversation. And after listening, you should be able to respond appropriately. Now, responding, people will respond in verbal and non-verbal manners. So, for example, maybe you would nod or you would say, to keep your friend talking. But if we are talking about a speaking test, we need to use our words. We need to put our responses into words. And in order to get that conversation to develop, you need to understand what that response means. That's how you keep the conversation going. Now, this can be affected by different factors. So, first of all, you need to think about how close you are to the person you are talking to. So this means the familiarity. Now, if we are talking about the speaking test, this might be something that is not your choice. Like for example, maybe your teacher chose your partner for you. So when it comes to this, you have to be familiar with whoever you're talking to. You need to spend time getting comfortable with them. Maybe you have to practice with them. Okay, the other thing is the topic. This can affect the conversation. If both of you find the topic boring, you're not going to want to talk about it. If it's interesting for both of you, you will speak enthusiastically. You will be excited to talk to each other about it. Like for me, if I were to talk about horror flicks, like the most recent one I started binge watching is American Horror Stories. I can go on and on about it, but my friends will not be able to relate. And their response would be like, wow, I can't believe you actually, waste. This is what you do for fun. But for me, it is fun because that's what I find interesting. So these are things that affect a conversation, whether one side finds the topic interesting and the other person finds it boring, or both find it interesting. Okay. The thing is also your personality. Sometimes when you have a mismatch of personality, whereby one person is an introvert, so maybe somebody is very shy. If you have a shy person paired up with someone who is an extrovert who is very open about their opinions, their emotions, you might have an imbalance in that conversation. It can work, but in a speaking test, it might be an imbalance. So for me, myself, I'm actually an introverted person. When I was growing up, it was very difficult for me to make friends as a child, but I had to learn because I got tired of not having friends. So basically, yeah, you can get over being an introvert. You can learn things to say to encourage others to speak to you, to respond to you. You don't have to feel lonely. And some of the things that we learn today can help you, not just in your speaking test, but also maybe to make friends. Right? So that's just a little bit of sharing on my part about introverts and all that. Now, this is a comic that I found online, how an extrovert and introvert might carry on a conversation, where it seems like the introvert is giving just a little bit only of input. And it seems like, oh, I'm helping, this is what I'm doing. But for introverts, I know even this little amount feels like a lot because introverts tend to notice what's going on and observe and not just give input as much as an extrovert. So if you are an introverted person, don't feel like you are down or you are disadvantaged. Maybe there's a reason why your teacher paired you up that way. But don't despair, don't feel down about it. You can actually help each other during the test to show us what both of you can do. Think of it as an opportunity for us to see what you can do and trust in your teacher's wisdom. Okay. The other thing is, in a conversation, there is a social aspect. So you will not just be expected to talk, but there is a social angle to it. And sometimes it's not what is said, but what is implied. Now, this is most obvious if you were to have a conversation with a child. So for me, when I talk to my son, he says he's only 7 years old, so you can forgive him for this. So these were some of the conversations I had with him where he doesn't really get what I'm trying to say because he's very literal. So this was the most recent conversation where he said, Mommy, when Daddy picked me up from school today, I tried showing Mochi to my friends. Mochi is our new kitten, so he loves Mochi. Oh, let me go back to that. So I said, oh, what did they say? And he said, oh, they didn't say anything because we were in the car. And I said, well, maybe they couldn't see. Meaning, maybe they couldn't see the cat in the car because they were outside. And he thinks that I meant that they're blind, and he says, no, they're not blind, like matter of factly, but you know, he missed the mark there. The other one was when we were watching the news and it was about the Queen of England who passed away recently. So I said, oh, look, Xavier, the Queen of England has passed away. And he was reading the subtitles and he went, oh, Elizabeth II. She's a second version. There's a first one. So he's not technically wrong in that sense, but he misunderstood that, you know, there's a second person to the name. That's what I mean by the social aspect of it. And around April this year, I had COVID. I got COVID in April this year. So he was trying to be nice when I was sick. And he said, oh, look, mommy, we got you a candle. It was a nice candle. It was a scented candle. But in my sick state, I didn't have the words to say. So I said, oh, that's so nice. What flavor is it? And he said, flavor? You can't eat it. I mean, I didn't know the word at that time because I was sick. And you know, when you go shopping, when they try to promote different scents, the word was scents. I couldn't think of it, but being a child, he is still very literal and he doesn't get all these cues. With children, it's funny, but with older teenagers and adults, it becomes awkward. So this is what I mean by there's a social aspect to conversation as well. Okay, those are some examples. So let's talk about what we are going to focus on for today. There are three things that we are going to be looking at. The first one is how we can give genuine responses. Genuine responses here means responses that would reflect on your train of thought at that point in time. Maybe you need to fake it because it's a speaking test, but you know, it's supposed to be a genuine response. Then we're going to talk about how we can build discussion strategies. I find that a lot of students, they have problems to demonstrate a discussion. They're good at describing, but coming to a conclusion, coming to agree after talking about, you know, pros and cons of a topic, it's a bit difficult for them. So today I'm going to share a little bit of how we are going to improve this. And ultimately, we're going to talk about ways to improve overall communication. Okay, so how does this relate to the speaking test, you may ask? First of all, in the speaking test, you need to demonstrate very specific skills. When we are assessing you, we want to see specific skills. So these are the skills that we want to see. Besides elaborating ideas and expressing opinions, which most students are able to do, we want to take it a little bit further. We want to see a little bit more because we don't just want you to describe what is given. We want to hear a conversation, a discussion. So we want to see how you respond to your partner. We want to see how you negotiate a decision. How do you come to an agreement, basically? And in order to do this, you need to take turns. So when I was assessing the Form 5 speaking test last year during SPM, I found that most students can do number 1 and 2 really well. Even if they had problems to respond, most students would just say, oh, I agree with you. Oh, I disagree with you. But the one skill, no, the two skills that really make a difference between the excellent and average students would be numbers 4 and 5 here. How do you negotiate a decision? And how do you take turns? So this is what we want to see. We want to see all 5 skills. It's not enough that you are just speaking in English. You need to think of this test, a speaking test, as a showcase. It's time to show us what you can do, not your teacher looking at you for 12 minutes in that way. Okay. Now these skills, besides the speaking test, you will be taking them into the real world. In the real world, after SPM ends or after whatever exam you're sitting for ends, you will be having to work with other people. You will need to elaborate your ideas. You respond to others around you. Take turns when people talk. Otherwise, that's just not nice. If you manipulate the situation, you monopolize a conversation. So there is some real world practicality behind these skills here. It's not just for SPM. Huh? Okay, but let's take a look at the speaking test structure. In case there are some of you who are unfamiliar with the speaking test, let's have a look at how it will be scored, how the structure will be. Okay, so there are 3 parts to the test. In the first part, you will have a few warm-up questions. So your teacher would ask you simple questions such as, what do you usually do after school? What is your hobby? What do you do on the weekends? So these are warm-up questions. It's just to get you comfortable, to ease you into the speaking test. Okay, then we come to part 2. Oh, before that, I forgot to say, you will be assessed in pairs. You have a partner, but you will be given individual marks. Your marks will not affect your partner's marks. So you will get your own marks from this. Huh? Okay, back to the speaking test. Now, in part 2, this is called the individual long turn. You will be given some notes and you are expected to expand on the notes. So you will be elaborating your ideas here, elaborating and describing your ideas, expressing your opinions as well. And then after you talk about those notes, your partner will be asked a question based on that. So further down the webinar today, I will be sharing some sample questions for both part 2 and part 3 that will be shared in the Telegram group as well for you to practice at home or with your friends. And then after the first student is done in part 2, the second student will be doing their turn. And then after that is done, we move on to part 3. In part 3, you will be given a bubble map. In this bubble map, there's a discussion question in the middle bubble, and then you have 6 smaller bubbles outside that are related to the topic. You will be asked to reach a decision about the middle bubble problem, the middle bubble question. And then after that, you will have a HOTS question. This HOTS question, H-O-T-S, this is not a spelling error, it's not a hot question. It stands for higher order thinking skill, a higher order thinking skill, meaning whatever topic you have been talking about in that bubble map, now you need to answer something related to the real world, related to current issues. So I remember last year, some of the things that came out were related to the world food crisis, carbon emissions, greenhouse gases, things like that. So you need to also be very in touch with current issues. Okay. The speaking test is worth 25% of your grade, your overall grade for English. So if you want to get excellent results, you want to do your best, I hope you do, I know you can, you need to focus not just on reading and writing, you need to also pay attention to speaking and listening equally. All 4 skills need to be developed equally in order for you to get excellent results for English. Okay, the duration of the speaking test is 12 minutes. It's very short. It sounds long, but 12 minutes, including the instructions, time for you to think is very, very short. It will go by in a flash, in the blink of an eye, like students like to say with idioms, as fast as lightning. Before you realize it, the test is done. Okay, before we go into the skills, let's look at some of the criteria. Here is the marking criteria that we will look at when we are going to give you your marks. During the test, there are two people who will give you the marks. One person will be asking you the questions, who is probably going to be your teacher, and the other person will just observe you. Now, if you are not familiar with how the test is like, it will be very similar to the Form 3, PT3 speaking test structure. If you're still not familiar with that, if you didn't get the chance to do it when you were in Form 3 because of COVID restrictions and whatnot, there are videos on YouTube. You just search for SPM speaking test. There are videos up there for you to look at. Okay, so now let's look at how we score the students so that you know what to aim for. Okay, let's look at grammar. We'll begin with grammar first. What do we want to see? Now, 6 is the full marks for each of these criteria. There are 4 criteria here, so total score will be 24. And it's not impossible to get. I know you can get it. It can be done, okay? It allows for error, so it's not like it's a totally impossible goal. Okay, now let's look at grammar together. I want to draw your attention here to these words here, a high degree of grammatical accuracy. A high degree of grammatical accuracy, okay? Errors are rare and generally corrected when they do occur. So we do allow you to make mistakes. We understand. Sometimes when you speak, your mouth works faster than your brain and it comes out weird. That's okay. You know what? Just take a moment to correct yourself. It's good to self-correct because it shows that you are aware of that mistake and you know how to fix it. So if you do slip up, don't be afraid. Just correct yourself and move on. That's completely okay. Okay, next, we also want to see a range of grammatical structures. So you have to be used to speaking with different sentence structures. And last but not least, for grammar, we want to see organizational patterns, cohesive devices, and connectors. Now, cohesive devices are also used in your writing, I believe. It's one of the criteria that you use in writing. It's one of the criteria that we look for in speaking. So get used to using cohesive devices because this is what we look for. And this is what gives the structure to your ideas. It links the ideas together. Cohesive means they are linked together. That's what we want to see. That is what excellent students do. Okay? And with practice, you can get there. You must practice speaking. Okay, next, let's move on to vocabulary. Vocabulary means the type of words that you use, the range of words that you use. In BM, it's called kosakata. So how many words you use accurately to give your ideas. That's basically what vocabulary is about. Okay. We also want to see a range of appropriate vocabulary. Appropriate. It's not enough to just memorize impressive words or bombastic words, like what students like to call it. It's not enough to memorize. You need to know when to use it appropriately, okay? To give and exchange views. Exchange means I give one and then your friend gives one. Exchanging, continuously exchange, not one person talking only. Okay, on a wide range of topics, abstract, complex, and unfamiliar. Okay, that's how last year we had questions about global warming, the food crisis. Some people don't know we have a food crisis in this world, but you know, we actually do. We don't have enough food. Okay, so this is the mark of an excellent student. Vocabulary that is used appropriately. Okay, now let's move on to the third criteria here, communicative competence. Competence, how well you do something, how well you communicate. Okay, the first thing is, are you able to do so spontaneously? Spontaneously, so with little preparation. You don't have time to really ponder about your ideas during the speaking test. It's pretty spontaneous. And then you need to maintain, initiate, begin. Initiate means to begin. Maintain, develop and close a conversation with ease. Conversation here, not I talk and then you talk, not like that. Okay. The last thing here is you should be able to relate contributions skillfully and effectively of your partner. What this means is you need to be able to respond. You need to respond to your partner if you want to do well in the speaking test. It's not enough that you are speaking in English. You need to demonstrate these specific skills. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. So these three here, grammar, vocab, and communicative competence, altogether we have 18 marks. One teacher will be giving you these marks for these three criteria here. The last one here, okay, the overall spoken performance, this will be given by the teacher who is asking you questions. So they are also giving you marks. Okay, their marks will be combined to get your individual score. All right, so we have different criteria because we have different things to look out for during the test. So here for the overall spoken performance, okay, this is generally a watered down version of the three previous criteria. First, are you able to understand questions and instructions? Are you able to ask and respond to questions and suggestions? Okay, maintaining and developing the interaction and produce extended relevant stretches of language, meaning you are able to speak independently. You are able to speak on your own. Okay, these are the criteria. I hope you are taking note of these things because it's pretty important to know where you get the marks from. All right, let's see now. Okay, I think that question has been answered in the chat. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on. Now we are going to go to the a sample question. This is an example of the notes you need to expect for the individual long term. So this is the structure of what it looks like in part 2. Your teacher will give you this and then you will be given some time to look at it and then talk about the topic on your own. You will be expected to talk about these bullet points. You are expected to give ideas here. And then your partner will be asked a question about this topic. It might not be about birthdays, but it might be about something else. Okay, so for this part, how would a student do this? Okay, so if I were to talk about this, maybe I would say, okay, a birthday gift to buy a friend one of my friends would be cat food. I would buy my friend cat food because she has many cats. I would buy it from a pet store. It is suitable because she is a cat lover. In my opinion, birthday celebrations are important for friendships because this is how we show each other that we appreciate our friend. That is something a response that I would expect. Okay. However, if you were to just answer like that, you have not shown how these ideas are connected to each other. If we go back to the scoring criteria, okay, such an answer does not have cohesive devices. It has very little connectors. Okay, the vocabulary is not very specific. It's not very precise. It's just general vocab. And there's not much to go on. There's not many complicated structures of sentences that they have used. So if you were to just talk about it like that, without your cohesive devices, without appropriate specific vocabulary, you cannot get a 6. In order to do well, you must practice. Practice makes perfect, isn't it? Now, in a speaking test, you have to remember that you are in a social situation and you might be nervous. You might lose the words. You know what you want to say, but it doesn't come out that way. The way to beat this fear is by practice. Practice, practice, practice until it becomes natural to you. It's okay to practice with the same questions as long as it helps you. Okay, so how do we improve our speaking game? First of all, give a sequence to your ideas. So get used to sequencing, organizing your ideas. Okay, you can just use to begin with. Here are some phrases for you to use. Firstly, or you can say first of all to begin. Then after that, talk about your preference. Personally, I would or I would rather, then tell us your opinion. Okay, then justify. Justify means you are giving reasons for your opinion. I say this because, my opinion is this because, okay, or this is because, that is also okay. Okay, now here are some overused phrases I noticed that students like to use. They like to say, I think, and then the next sentence, they also start with, I think, I think, I think. This is where practice is key. You need to practice using different phrases. You can say, I feel that. I would say that. Okay? Try to avoid repeating the same phrases over and over. However, if you have very little practice, when you are nervous, when you are under pressure, you will use the same phrases over and over again. Okay, this is what will happen. So practice is important. Practice with your partner, practice on your own. It's okay. Get used to speaking in English the way we want to. All right, now we are going to have a demonstration. We are going to get one of our panelists, our moderators, to demonstrate how to talk about this topic. This topic is a cultural festival. So without further ado, I would like to invite one of our moderators. Asri, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right,
Hi,
Asri.
everyone.
Hi, Asri. Asri, can you show us how would you talk about this topic?
All right. I'll read the question first. A cultural festival. Talk about a cultural festival that your family celebrates. Okay. Um, all right. Here we go. I'll try. Basically, a family festival that we celebrate as a family is Hari Raya celebration. So basically, Hari Raya celebration or the festival of Eid for some marks the end of the fasting month after we have fast for 30 days in Ramadan, and it is an indicator of the start of a new month of the Islamic calendar, which is Shawwal. As a matter of fact, Hari Raya Puasa or Hari Raya celebration is a celebration of victory after we have completed 30, almost 30 days of fasting, and it is a signature of overcoming personal struggles during Ramadan. Firstly, at the very beginning, okay, what do you do to celebrate? Firstly, at the very beginning of the day, we would um, go perform an early morning prayer at the mosque uh, as a sign of appreciation for our blessings. And then right after that, we will go back to our house and seek forgiveness from our parents and friends for any wrongdoings. Do you enjoy the celebration? Personally, I do enjoy the celebration, particularly because we are able to meet our relatives and family members and our friends. Hari Raya is the best time or the best excuse for all of us to gather together and catch up with some old friends, especially the friends that you only get to meet once a year. That's all from me. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Azri. Excellent. I really like that you have made, a clear structure for us to follow. You have justified your ideas. You gave us the background, a little bit about Eid, what it is about. And it's very clear for me, there's a clear beginning, a middle, and an end to it. So thank you for that, okay? I hope that gave everyone an idea of what we expect from our students. Now, what not to do? Okay, let me tell you what not to do. You get the paper, and then you say, teacher, can I speak in Malay? No, of course not lah. You cannot lah. This is an English test. Cannot lah speak in Malay. Obviously you cannot. So no, don't ask that question. English test. English, please. Okay. So the other thing that students tend to slip up on, they want to say a word. They forgot how to say it in English. Will they be penalized for it? Yes and no. If it's just one word, you can say, in Malay, we call it this. In Malay, we call it this. Then you describe what that thing is. For example, you don't know how to say, there's no translation of ketupat. Describe. There is a delicacy called ketupat that we enjoy eating. It is made of blah, 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 blah. Okay, good. That's good. But don't straight up answer in a different language. There's no way to fail the speaking test unless you speak a different language. Okay, so keep going with it. Don't give up and say speaking is difficult, all right? It can be done. It is possible to do. Okay, it just calls for a lot of practice. So if we go back to the phrases that I was talking about earlier, okay, and compare it to what Mr. Asri did just now, which he did very well, he clearly sequenced his ideas. There was, first of all, to begin with, he also used the word personally, and then he justified. So it was easy for us to follow what he was talking about. That is what we mean by cohesion. Is it easy for your audience to follow? Because it all merges together, right? Now let's have another demonstration by another one of our moderators. This time, I believe the lucky person is Miss Marisa. Miss Marisa, are you ready to help us demonstrate for the next topic here? We have a different topic.
Yep, I'm all pumped up.
All right, let's go. We're pumped on caffeine and ready to roll. Let's go.
Yep. Okay, so hi everyone. So for the first one, I would say personally, I can save money by putting aside a portion of my allowance. For example, I would put 10% of it in my bank or in my savings account. I say this because we should have an emergency fund whereby we are able to use the money during emergencies. For example, if I have a flat tire, I would take money out of that account. And I feel that we can save money and still enjoy ourselves. We can buy the things that we want during sales, such as the 11/11 sale carnival.
Oh.
I believe you do that as well, Miss Allison.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then I do believe that people practice saving money by putting some of their funds aside, whether in banks or converting it to other funds. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Miss Marisa. Okay, so
Welcome.
we had a very good demonstration. Again, you can see a clear beginning, middle, and end, where her opinions are, and she even gave examples of ways to save money and what she does with her emergency fund. So here we have a good example of how it should be structured as well. Now, let's talk about the question for your partner. After you are done talking about the notes that are given to you, your partner is expected to answer a question based on it. So for this topic, an example question that your partner can expect would probably be something like, what was the last thing you did with the money you saved? What was the last thing you did with the money you saved? Now here, you don't need to be very honest, you know. You don't have to tell us literally what you bought. We want to hear how you express your ideas. Not so much, oh, the last thing I bought was, you know, toilet paper. Not very interesting lah. Give me something that you can elaborate on a little bit. For example, if I were to answer that question, I would say the last thing that I spent money on was coffee. I enjoy a very good cup of coffee and I feel that I reward myself every time I do. Okay, good. A little bit better than something boring. You don't have to be totally straight up honest about it. Okay, talk about things that are interesting that you yourself can elaborate on. Okay, so that is part one. Part two of the speaking test. You can expect these types of questions, and we have also talked about how to elaborate, how to describe the notes to help you go. The next thing is, now if you remember what I mentioned earlier, you need to know how to respond. So this is in preparation for the next part of the test, which is the bubble map discussion. Here, I need to draw your attention to the importance of using your words. Use your words. If you agree, say that you agree. Okay, if you disagree, say that you disagree. Remember, in a conversation here in number 2, there is a push and pull going on in a conversation. That is a conversation. Okay, not just talk. I talk about A and you talk about B. That's not a conversation. We need to come together to find the commonality about what we are talking about. Okay, now, for a basic level to begin with, it's okay to say, I agree with you. It's okay to say, I don't agree with you. But if okay is all that we settle for, we will not get excellent marks. You will get just okay marks only. If you want higher marks, if you want to perform, you really want to show us what you can do, say something else. Use more words. Say this. You're right about that. That's true. That's exactly how I feel. Instead of saying, I agree with you, verbalize that you agree by saying, that's exactly how I feel. Okay, much better. Instead of saying, I don't agree with you, you can also say, I don't think so. I'm afraid I don't agree with you about that. Now, I remember on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts and even on like IGTV, there were videos about ways to say no, ways to say I don't like that. So you can look at these things and learn along with that, okay, and use it to practice. It's much better than just saying, I agree, I disagree, much better, okay? Once again, try to avoid repeating the same phrases over and over. So don't just learn how to say you're right about that. Learn how to say it in other ways as well, okay? If you agree to a point, sometimes you don't agree completely with someone. That's okay. That's normal. That's human relationships. You might agree with half of what they say. So what you can do is say, I see what you're saying, but I don't really agree on this part. Now, that's another way of going about it. Okay, giving genuine responses here about how it reflects how you feel. That's what the genuine part here means. Huh? Okay, now for the next part, we're going to need some audience participation. So here, if you are sitting with your friends in a hall or in a lecture room or wherever you're watching this together, you can discuss with them. These are some of the examples of common errors that I have encountered. How would you fix these? So if you know how to fix these, can you type it in the chat for us to have a look? Or if you notice there's something I keep saying that is obviously an error, but I keep doing it, I don't notice it, you can put it in the chat as well. Okay, so it's time for us to have a little bit of conversing through the chat. What are some of the ways for us to fix these errors? Why do you think they are wrong? Okay. Or maybe we can open it to the moderators. Is there any common error you find that your students make or adults make that get on your nerves?
Yeah, I think the first one, Allison, I am agree that's quite common. And our students do that. So if possible, guys, do switch to I agree and just eliminate the word am, right?
Yeah, I am agree. I agree. Just I agree is enough. No need to say I am. Get rid of this am here. This am is not necessary. Thank you, Miss Marisa.
Welcome.
And then that's mean. I notice a lot of Malaysians make this error. That's mean. They use this when they want to elaborate their idea. So that's mean that I will blah, blah, blah. But when you say that's mean, does that mean that is mean? The error here changes the meaning of the sentence. I think what they're trying to say is that means. That means. Okay, so this is something it's quite common, but we want to minimize this to prepare for the speaking test. Sometimes people,
Allison,
yeah.
oh sorry. We do have a response. Someone typed you are you
Oh
apostrophe
yes.
re and your. Yep.
Yeah, your and your sounds the same, but it's different. It's similar to that's mean and that means kind of errors. Pet peeve that I have too. Good
So
catch.
your and your.
Yeah, your and your pen. This is your pen.
And you are pen.
You are pen. I am agree. So yeah. So there are
Possible,
these
yeah. We
are
need to avoid those.
and we need to talk about these errors so that we know what not to do. Sometimes we don't realize we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think it's quite tricky and quite difficult to spot the errors that we did ourselves. So maybe they could, as you go on, as you practice speaking, maybe you could check with a friend. Because I think others would see it clearly, more clearly than we do.
True. And it's it's important to be open to the fact that we make these errors. We make them, accept that, okay? We are not, without error, without fault. So once we know where we went wrong, then we can improve ourselves. Okay? It's not like the end of the world, oh no, I said the wrong word. No, it's okay. It's a learning process. We will get there. We'll get there together.
And then there's some comments as well, unnecessarily adding s to verbs after I. The word I, that's a good one as well.
True. They and their, yeah. I have a question. How to know when to use the phrase used to and used to? Used to, U-S-E-D, used to means it is something that was previously a habit. I used to love you, used to. I don't love you anymore. Like that, that's what it means. It's something that I did before habitually, okay? And used to. I'm not sure here, is it talking about the use of something, the purpose of something? Okay, let's have a look. So is the question according to current topics? By Yashini. Yashini asked that in the chat. I'm guessing you're talking about the speaking part 3 question, according to current topics. Yes and no. If the current topics are related to the syllabus, it can be asked. Okay, so whatever topics that you have learned in class, things about going on holiday, crime, finding jobs, if it is related to those things, if current topics are related to what you have learned in school, it can be asked? It's a very good question, very sharp observation. Okay. Oh, there's this thing here that I wanted to bring your attention to. Some Malaysians like to use last time. The second last bullet point here, last time. What they actually mean to say is previously or before this or prior to this. Last time here doesn't mean dulu in Malay, dulu saya. No, it doesn't mean that. You mean to say previously, not last time. Last time what? Last time there were dinosaurs roaming the world. No, you don't use that to talk about things that you used to do. Okay, this is just something that I found kind of annoying. Me personally, it's a me problem. Okay. Are there any more comments in here? It's hurt. Hi, Miss, may I know why using is it is under common errors? Is it is not a question tag for English, actually. It's a Malaysian thing where we put is it at the end of statements and ask it like it's a question. For example, you haven't eaten, is it? This is your bag, is it? Or you had a nightmare, is it? They use that to ask a question, but actually that's not how you ask a question. For example, like if you were to say, you haven't eaten, is it? You should ask, have you eaten? That's a question structure. Is it is not a way of asking questions in standard English. So try to avoid that, especially if it's a formal setting like an exam. If it's talking to friends, they'll understand what you mean. But in an exam, no. I hope that clarifies about is it. You don't agree with this, is it? The way to ask it should be, why don't you agree with this? That's what the question means. So avoid using is it as a way to ask questions. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so before we go on to our communication strategy, all right, let's have a look one more time at the scoring criteria as a reminder. So remember, when it comes to grammar, even if you make mistakes, it's okay to spot it and correct it yourself. You can correct yourself. It's good to correct yourself. Okay, and cohesive devices, remember, use them wisely. And vocabulary, the next one, we want it to be appropriately used, appropriate choices made, effectively communicating with each other. Okay, spontaneity is important because you will not have time to write anything. You're not allowed to write anything. Okay, and then you need to initiate, maintain, develop, and close a conversation. So this is what we will be developing in the next section. Okay, next, overall, remember, we want to see if you can understand questions and instructions. We want to see if you can respond to questions and suggestions and maintain and develop the interaction. Okay, so this is pretty important. This is what we look at when we give you the marks. Now, what if during the test? What if during the test you didn't understand something? You didn't understand a word. Can you ask your teacher to explain? You can ask, but your teacher will not explain. I'll put it to you that way. You can say, teacher, what does this mean? Your teacher has to follow a fixed script. We have to follow only what is given to us. We can only say what is given to us. We cannot stray from the script because then it will be unfair to other students. We must be fair to all the students. So it cannot be that some students get an explanation and others don't. Okay, that is why. So if you don't understand, the most your teacher can do is just repeat the question and give maybe an emphasis on a word to help you. All right, so even if they ask for hints, we can't give you anything. Sorry. Okay, now let's move on. The strategy, the main strategy that I'm going to be sharing today, how to build a strategy for cohesion. Now, this is using bingo. If you have played bingo before, you'll be familiar with this grid. This is a 5 by 5 grid, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 across and 5 down. The way that you play this in other games, in real bingo, is you have to try to score 5 across to get the word bingo. Every time you score a line across, you cross off a letter, and then when you get 5 across, okay, you've crossed out B-I-N-G-O, then you get bingo. You yell out bingo, yay, bingo. Okay. Now for teachers and for students, for parents who are watching, if you want to create your own bingo grid, you can go to this website called bingobaker.com. It's free to use. It's customizable. Like what you see here, this is a 5 by 5 grid. You can also build 3 by 3, where it's 3 across and 3 down. You can go up to 8 across, 8 down, or you want something more challenging, 10 across, 10 down. It's all on the website. It is a free bingo card generator, and you can put in whatever you want in each of these squares. So for building communication strategies, what we can do is make a game out of it so that it takes the stress out of speaking. Let's make a game. Okay, people like games. Games are fun. Here is how you make the speaking practice phrases. So as a teacher, what I would do is put in the phrases I want my students to practice. Here are cohesive devices. There are also terms that show agreement, disagreement, phrases that show beginning, such as first of all, and ending, finally, and lastly here. Ways to give examples. And I would put this into this grid and then let my students practice discussing with this bingo card. Every time they use a phrase, they cross it off. Okay, so they will cross off maybe to begin with, because that's what they use. Then they try to get 5 across. When you use a phrase, you cancel it out. When you use a phrase, you cancel it out. So when there are 5 in a row, you cancel out one of the bingo letters here. All right. Now, before you take this and use it in class, I want to draw your attention to the middle square here, where there's this blinking focus phrase here. In here is where I would put the phrase that I want my students to practice using, the particular focus of that practice. So for example, if I want them to use a phrase that practices justifying, I'll put that in the middle there. Why in the middle? Because in the middle, once you get this middle square here, then it will be easy for you to get bingo. You understand? You can go, if you go down, you already have this middle one here. Then you just need to go across this way and across to the left, and that will help you to get bingo earlier. Okay, so this is a strategy that you can take and use and adapt in your classroom. The reason why you need to have these phrases in front of you is because if you just think it's in your mind, yeah, it will stay in your mind, but you will forget some of it. So when you have a visual aid like this in front of you, you know which ones you always use. You know which ones you don't use, and you are forced to use the ones you haven't used before because you want to cross them out to get bingo. Okay, then you will build up slowly your vocabulary to improve your cohesion. Okay, this is how we will do it. There are more speaking phrases, more phrases for you to practice in your textbook in Form 5. In your Form 5 textbook, it's in page 187. I'll write this down. Page 187. And if you have your textbook in front of you now, look at it. All these phrases are from there. And there are more phrases there as well for you to practice. Okay. Now, for teachers also, besides putting in a focus phrase, you can put here the phrase you want them to get correct. For example, you want them to say that means instead of that's mean. You put that means into the focus phrase square, and that will help them to notice. That will help your students to notice, oh, I have to get this one right. Then I can get it. Then I can get bingo. Okay, this is how the bingo card works. Okay, right. So you can also laminate this. For example, you want to create different sheets of bingo cards. Some are for describing and elaborating. Next, you want to talk about responding. And finally, you want to do a bingo card about comparing and contrasting and justifying. You have different language functions. Okay, laminate them so that they can be reused. If not, you can make even a soft copy of it, put it in the students' phones so that every time they use it, they open the editor, the picture editor, and just cross it off from there. Don't save the image with the crossed off ones so that they can always refer to it on their phones, right? So let's have an example of how to use this with a sample question. Okay, how to use this with a sample question. So here we have our third sample question today. The question is an important device. Talk about a device that is important to you. You should say what the device is, what you use it for, why it is important, and if young children should be allowed to use electronic devices, why or why not. Okay, now, how do we use this with the bingo card? Okay, we look at the phrases that I want to use and form a sentence with it to talk about the notes given. So I would say, to begin with, a device that I use, which is important to me, is my phone. Okay, so I would cross off to begin with. Okay. Next, I move on to the second bullet point, what I use it for. So I would say, I use it for various uses. For example, my health tracker app helps to keep track of how many steps I walk in a day. Okay. Other than that, I also use it to keep in touch with people through various applications such as WhatsApp, Telegram, email, and social media. So I would cross off other than that. Okay, so I've already crossed off 3 to begin with, for example, and other than that. Next, I would say why it is important to me. For me, it's important because this is what I use to keep my life in order. Okay, I say this because the applications are used for me to organize what I do in my day-to-day life. So I've already used 4 phrases from the bingo card. Okay, then I would move on to the last bullet point here, if young children should be allowed to use electronic devices. So maybe I want to use, my opinion about young children using electronic devices is they should be allowed to use it with appropriate guidance. Okay, then I choose another phrase. Let me use, where was it? Where was it just now? My reason for saying this is because they are too young to make their own decision and are unaware of the risk involved in using electronic devices. Finish. Okay, so I have already used different cohesive devices. At this point, I haven't gotten bingo yet. That's okay. That's okay. You can keep this card with you and use it for the next practice. Maybe you want to practice another sample question in this format, or you want to use it for the bubble map discussion later on. It's up to you as a student, as a teacher, as a parent, how you want to use it, okay? So this is where you can decide how best to help yourself, how best to help teachers. help your students, sorry, as teachers. Okay, so this is a tool that can be used for many reasons, for many ways. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the discussion. The last part of the speaking test looks like this. It is a bubble map. The middle bubble here is actually a problem that you need to solve. You need to solve this through a discussion with your partner. The outer bubbles are possible solutions. You need to discuss solutions to solve this problem in the middle. Basically, it's a problem-solving task. Okay. Okay, the students discuss the topic in the middle bubble. That's how it works. You're discussing this. The outer bubbles are ideas or solutions. There are many ways to discuss. You can talk about pros and cons. You can give opinions. You can justify your opinions. Justify means you defend. You defend your opinions. Okay, so after you are done discussing, your teacher will stop your conversation and ask you, how would you best solve this middle problem here? After you come to your decision, after that, there's one more question, the HOTS question, the higher order thinking skills question that is related to this. So for example, here, the question that might be asked is, in what ways can neighbors help to take care of each other? Okay, crime in neighborhoods. The topic in your textbook, I think, is crime. And you learn about criminals. Okay, so this is the structure in part 3. This is the structure in part 3. Sometimes, if you are overly focused on describing all the outer bubbles before you make a decision, you have not truly discussed. You have not really had a conversation. So for example, if it were Ms. Marisa and Mr. Astri, so Ms. Marisa will describe CCTV. CCTV means closed circuit television. It is a form of surveillance. And then Mr. Astri says, oh, a house alarm is something that you install in the house. And then Ms. Marisa describes, oh, neighborhood watch is a system in the neighborhood where you watch out for each other. That takes time. You are actually only given 2 minutes to discuss, to talk about solutions to the middle bubble. So if you only describe, how will you come to a decision? That was the main problem I noticed that students have if you stop at describing. So we want you to come to a decision. Okay, so what is the strategy to discuss? Still working with this crime topic. This is a technique that Mr. Sharil, our English teacher here in MRSM Mukah, came up with, which I thought was pretty clever. So Mr. Sharil, I hope you are well. You're still recovering from COVID. Take care. Anyway, thank you for this technique. Between 2 students, you don't need to discuss all 6. Instead, you go with 3 options. So maybe you only talk about CCTV, house alarm, neighborhood watch. So the first student only suggests 3. Okay, so maybe they would say, in my opinion, I believe crime in neighborhoods can be reduced with CCTV, house alarm, and neighborhood watch. The second student responds, but they eliminate 1. So the second student might say something by saying like, in my opinion, I agree that CCTV and house alarm are effective. However, neighborhood watch is not really applicable nowadays because people don't know their neighbors. Okay, so you've had 3. Now you've eliminated 1. You are down to 2. Okay, don't bring up the one that you've already disagreed with. Once you disagree on something, let it go. Now you're down to 2. So the first student can now suggest an alternative. Say, okay, besides that, how about police patrol? Why don't we involve the police in taking care of our neighborhoods? So you're back down to 3, back up to 3. But what you have already done is discuss, describe, and come up with suggestions already. if you do this 3, eliminate 1 and suggest 1. Okay, so the second student now needs to respond by eliminating from these 3. How do you eliminate? You talk about pros and cons. So you can talk about the strength and weakness of CCTV, for example. Strength and weakness of house alarm. If you both have the same opinion, that means that is the one you agree on. Naturally, in a discussion, if you have the same opinion that police patrol is the most effective way, that is the solution to how crimes can be reduced in neighborhoods for your discussion. Okay, don't go and say something like you disagree with this, but your friend agrees with the other one. In the end, you give a solution that you disagreed with to begin with. That's not really how discussions work in real life. Okay, so remember the bingo card earlier? You keep that with you and you use those phrases. You still use those phrases to practice the discussion strategy. Now, obviously, you can't bring the bingo card with you into the exam room. It's not meant for you to bring into the exam room to sneak into the exam center. No, it's meant as a practice tool. Don't bring it into your exam room or the quarantine room. No, at that point, no more bingo card. It should all be in here. Okay. So this is the first way of discussing. From 3, eliminate 1, you have 2, suggest a new one, and then go on eliminating from there. 1, 2, 3, eliminate. All right, that is one way to go about it. The second way to discuss, you just go 3 to 2 to 1. Okay, student A chooses 3. So now you have a new bubble map. A new bubble map here. Student A chooses 3 options. 1, 2, 3. Student B responds. Eliminate 1 by disagreeing. So eliminate maybe this one. Eliminate this. So now you're down to 2. So from 3 down to 2. Now you only focus on 2. Talk about pros and cons. What do you agree with? And that will be your decision. Okay, so from 3 to 2 to 1. Just now it was 3 to 2 to new one, discuss down. Okay, this is another sample question later. We will share these questions as well, the booklet that it came from in our Telegram group. Okay, so when you discuss in this way, when you use a 3-2-1 strategy, you will be able to spend more time suggesting. You will be able to respond and take turns and compare and contrast your ideas. Contrast means to show the differences. Instead of just describing, you are able to show more functions to the one. Okay, I see someone has asked a question there. Can we give more than one answer for the question? You mean the bubble map? The bubble map, it's pretty standard. We expect one answer. But there's nothing wrong in suggesting 2. We don't penalize you on that. Okay. But what we want to see is how you reach that decision, the process of reaching it by suggesting, taking turns, responding, making a decision, and comparing and contrasting. Okay, it's a good question. Okay. Right. Next up, I will be talking about how teachers, parents, or even students, you can adjust the bingo strategy. Okay, now there are 3 levels that I put here: basic, intermediate, and advanced. So now if you are at basic level, I would suggest you use a smaller bingo grid, where instead of 5 by 5, 5 across and 5 down, maybe you use only 3 by 3. So you use fewer phrases and you practice it. practice saying it, getting used to how it sounds. Okay, and I would suggest that you focus on the more basic functions, such as giving your opinions and suggesting. Focus on that first. Then, while you are speaking, you need to have the vocabulary related to the topic in front of you as well. The idea is that you put all the words that you need in front of you so that you don't waste too much time trying to translate what is in your mind to what you want to say. So put the language in front of you and then you just speak from there. Okay, list out the vocab that you want first. And instead of having individual bingo grids, bingo cards, you can share it with a partner. So you can work together to get bingo together. Later, when you are more advanced, you get your own bingo card. Okay, but to begin with, at a basic level, share together because you want to start off with something that you don't feel too overwhelmed by. Okay, now, when you get to the intermediate level, the middle level, this is where you can start using a larger bingo grid. This is where you can include different functions. So just now, in a 3x3 grid, maybe you only use giving opinions and suggesting. But now with an intermediate, you still have those phrases. It's still in that grid, but you include different functions, such as responding. Responding by saying, you're right about that. That can be included in your bingo grid. You can also say things like, what is your opinion about this? That's another way to take turns. These are things that we must practice before they become natural to us, if you're not used to speaking this way. Okay. Now, the vocab that you want to memorize should be in front of you as well. You want to memorize. And so this is where your range of vocabulary can be improved. List it out in front of you and learn how to use it appropriately. Don't just memorize blindly. So put the meanings together with it. You can even put it on the back of the bingo grid so that you can have it with you if you don't want it, side by side. At this point, for an intermediate level, each person can have their own individual grid. So that the challenge is there. Now you are challenging yourself to improve, to get to a higher level. Okay. Now for an advanced level, now once you have mastered intermediate, don't stop there. Don't be satisfied with mediocrity. Let's go higher. Let's get excellent. Let's go get advanced, level up. Okay, now we want a larger bingo grid. Just now you had 5x5. Why not challenge yourself? 6x6, a little bit more different. 8x8. So with those functions earlier, you've already gone up to taking turns and responding. Now include phrases too. Compare and contrast, justify. If you are still looking at the page in your textbook, this is where you can use those phrases in your bingo grid for the advanced level. And at this point, we want to start practicing self-correction. So if you want to include ways to correct yourself, if you make errors, put it into your bingo grid if you want to. Adjust according to your need. And at this level, one person has their own grid. Okay. So the bingo card can be adapted in many, many ways. It is really up to you how you want to use it. Okay, I hope it does help you in your classes. Okay. Now, let's talk about ways to improve communication. How can we improve communication? What do we do when you forget a word? Now, this has happened to me as well. Recently, I had to take a speaking test, and it is really nerve-wracking because you're put on the spot. You are under pressure from yourself, and you feel like, oh, I really have to get this. I have to get this. So in that moment, you can forget words that you usually know, simple words. The word that I forgot was clipboard. Clipboard. I forgot that word in the test. So what did I do? I describe what it is. I describe a clipboard. I didn't say the word clipboard, but I described it is a board that people clip papers on to write with. That is a strategy you can use if you forget. Okay, now in the speaking test, you are lucky that you have a partner because your partner can help you. If you forget the word, try describing it. Describe it. Your partner can help you to guess and you can keep that conversation going. Okay, if you don't know that word, the function of the word, it's okay. Try describing it. Okay, if your partner does that and you don't understand, don't freak out, don't panic. What you can do is ask them, could you repeat that, please? Okay, could you repeat that? I don't understand what you said. Don't do this to sabotage them. Don't sabotage them. Use it to really clarify meaning, to help each other. Okay, how can we remember all these phrases? These phrases here, practice, by practice, simple practice, over and over again. Okay, it's important. Speaking is practice. If you do make mistakes, once again, don't be afraid to correct yourself. Okay, don't be afraid to correct yourself. Now here is a game that we can use to help you practice describing words. The game is called Taboo. It's quite an old game. My son would call it a classic game because it's so old, apparently. And in this game, you can play this in class or in your homerooms or, you know, for fun. You are divided into two teams. You are divided into two teams, okay? The first person from team A is given a word to describe. You describe the word. You cannot say the word, okay? So for example here, the word is ninja. You cannot say the word ninja. There's also a list of words you cannot say. So for example, for ninja, you cannot say the word fight, karate, mutant, turtles, black belt. Why mutant? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I cannot say that, cannot say. So what can you say? Other things related to the word. Okay, other things. You can say what a ninja is. It is a martial artist from Japan. They use shurikens. So, you know, talk about other things related to the word. And this will help you improve your descriptive skills, describing forbidden words. Okay, you need to avoid certain words that are related to the word. For example, the word automobile, you cannot say auto. So for like the word ninja, you cannot say nin, like, or the first three letters of the word nine. No, cannot say that, cannot say. You cannot say what it sounds like or what it rhymes with, and you cannot use gestures. So you cannot, no, this is not charades. You need to improve the skill, okay? If you say the forbidden words, meaning any of these other words given, the other team will shout taboo, and you will lose the mark. You will lose the point. Okay, so this is a game. We will play one round later. We will play. So if you want to play online, okay, there's a score sheet and everything here on this website, playtaboo.com. Okay, this is the web version, playtaboo.com. You can play with your friends. You can also install the app to play in class if you're allowed to bring smartphones to school. All right, you have two teams here, team A, team B. How much time in each round? So how much time you are given to describe the word, how many rounds you can have. You can have as many rounds as you want. And there's also a point system here. If you get the correct answer, you get 10 points. If you skip, they deduct. If you get the wrong answer, minus 5 marks to the team. Okay, so here they have, you can see here the countdown, the amount of points. For example, the word aquarium, if your word is aquarium that you need to describe to your team, you cannot say tank, water, fish, glass, or aquatic. What can you say? It's a container. It's a container that can be ornamental. It's a hobby. It's a hobby of creatures. That sounds weird. But then it's your team that needs to guess the word aquarium. Okay. So this is a game called Taboo, a classic game. Okay, now we are going to move on to a demonstration round. Yay, demo. I wish to call again to invite Mr. Asri. Are you there?
I'm here, I'm here. Hi everyone. Again, demo time.
Here we go, demo. Demo time.
It's a bit noisy here. I'm so sorry if you can hear anything else.
It's all right. It's all right. Okay, so if we are at the demo now, we don't really have team A versus team B, but I would like you to demonstrate for us if the word given to you is astronaut and you are not allowed to say any of these other words, how would you describe astronaut, Mr. Asri?
Oh my god, okay. For astronaut, if I were to describe it without using those words, I would say it is an occupation. Um, Whereas someone needs to go out and venture outside the realm of planet Earth. I would say that.
The realm of planet Earth.
The realm of planet Earth.
Okay, so
Or Lilo said planet ER. Right, Lilo and Stitch said planet ER.
then your team will have to guess. The team will have to guess, oh, outside the realm of planet Earth, or maybe astronaut going into outer space. Spaceman, spaceman.
Yeah, that's good too. But you can't use space.
Yeah, you can't use space, but your team might say spaceman. So if they were
Yeah,
to say that,
close.
close but not, then you have to keep giving examples to keep them guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the word here would have been astronaut. Yay. Okay, so thank you, Asri. In the next round, this is where we're going to need audience participation. If the word given to you to describe is camera, if the word given to you to describe is camera, and you cannot say any of these words, you cannot say shoot, picture, camera, focus, memory, selfie, Wi-Fi, filter, front-facing, OOTD. You're not allowed to say any of these words. Can you put in the chat, how would you describe camera to your friends without using any of the other words? Let's see what you have in your chat. Okay, I'm seeing. Let's see. Anybody? How can we describe camera without saying any of these words? So for example, you can say most phones have it now installed. Most phones have it installed. So your friends would start guessing. Is it a calculator? Is it a heart monitor? Is it a compass? Then you can also continue to help them describe, help them guess. Ooh, mirror
Have
of
several
ourselves.
responses, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. It's coming. Capture something beautiful. Ooh, capture some. Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go. What if they say that? How else will you? What else can you say? Another eyes. Another eyes. I never thought of it being that way. Have flash. Yeah, it has flash. Then your friend might guess it's camera. Camera has flash. Mirror of ourselves in the smartphone. Mirror app. Something that is used to capture happy things. It's on a gadget. It evolves around time. A watch? Okay, I'm just playing dumb right now. But yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea that you are supposed to describe the thing. So you can look at the functions, you can look at the features, at what it does. A tool very famous among teenagers. Yeah, among adults too, and children. Everyone loves cameras. A gadget that works like phones. Oh wow, a little box that can take a moment in our life freeze, and we can always look at it back anytime. Oh, very nice. I like that. Like it captures moments. Very nice. Something that my sister always use. Haha. Okay, but you get it now, huh? You get that this is how taboo works. And taboo is played with the purpose of helping you to describe, to help you describe. Okay, so remember, if you want to use taboo, there are apps that you can use in preparation to help you prepare, get used to speaking that one. Okay, so what was the word just now? The word was camera. Yay, camera. Lights, camera, action. Okay, now, moving on. The last thing that I want to introduce is about podcasting. How many of you are actually familiar with podcasting? Can you mention in the chat if you are familiar? Can you put a little note there? Do you know what podcasts are? Have you listened to podcasts before? Do you know any good podcasts? Say cheese. Oh, I like that. Okay. Now, podcast is like a recording, it's an audio show. It's a show that you listen to. If you're not familiar with podcasts, I think it's starting to pick up in Malaysia. It's not as popular as it is in other countries, but in Malaysia, we are slowly picking up on the world of podcasting. It's like a show where you have episodes and seasons. Some of the episodes might be short, maybe a few minutes long. Others can go up to over an hour long. And they talk about many, many different topics. There's so many topics on that podcasts talk about. Okay, so the purpose of you listening to podcasts is to improve your listening skills. Speaking improves when your listening improves. To be able to speak well, to respond well, you need to be able to be good listeners. So learn to listen as well. Ooh, horror related one. Nice. I like horror stuff. I have listened to podcasts on Spotify. Yeah, me too. Listen to Emma Chamberlain's I didn't know she had a podcast. I didn't know Emma Chamberlain had a podcast. Okay, so some of you are familiar. That's great. That's a great place to start with. Okay, I was afraid nobody listens to podcasts, but it was like an old person thing. I'm not old. I'm not saying that. But anyway, let's go back to podcasting. So podcasts are available on many different platforms. You have Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, Overcast, Castbox. All of these are platforms where you can get podcasts. But if you want, you can actually make your own podcast. Okay, there's this app called Anchor FM. I have to thank Miss Zarina from Pontian MRSM TDI Pontian. Hi Zarina. She introduced this to us and it was fun. It was fun to play around with. Anchor FM is free on Play Store and App Store. There's also a website for it. You can make it a group project, your own project, anyhow you want to go about it. And it's free. You can use it to start recording. You don't need any external mic. You don't need to buy audio equipment. You can just use whatever is built into your phone, your laptop, and it's pretty good. Okay, you can record different segments here, like what you can see here. This is a sample layout of what it looks like on an Android phone. This was my phone, and split the recording into different sections for you to edit. Later, you can add on your own transitions, background music. You can choose from the library, and then it's just a drag and drop to create an episode. You can make the episode as long or as short as you want. You can do interviews. You can make it a personal journal of your own thoughts, reflections. It's up to you what you want to do.
The purpose. Allison,
yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I think the slide is stuck around round 2 taboo. It's not showing podcasting.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Thank you for telling me. Here we go. Here we go. This is the layout of the app. Layout of the app in the Android phone version. Okay.
Now it's showing.
Okay. So it's very, very user friendly. You just tap on record to start recording. If you don't like it, you trash it. It's fine. It's all recorded on this app. It doesn't take up space in your phone. So later, if you want to edit, you can edit on your phone here and add in interludes, music clips from the library, and so on. If you do it on the website, this is what the layout looks like. And then you just drag it and drop here to create an episode. So you can do this with friends. You can do this by yourself. The purpose of doing a podcast is getting used to speaking in English, expressing your ideas in English, and hearing yourself speak in English. For some people, it's hard to do that. I know it's hard to do that when it's something new to you. But if you are interested in things like debate, public speaking, poetry slam, or language performance arts, this can help you to monitor how you manipulate your voice, your intonation to improve yourself. But for speaking practice, this is a way to get used to hearing yourself speak in English. When you start off, it might feel weird to you, like, oh God, that's so weird, like you cringe about it. Yeah, that's normal. That's a normal reaction, but you need to get used to it. Once you are used to hearing yourself speak in English, that's when you can start making improvements. So one way to do it is by podcasting. Why podcast? Why not make a voice note to yourself? Of course, you can make a voice note to yourself, yes, but it's not interesting. It's kind of boring. So this is more fun. And if you make your own podcast, you don't want people to listen to it, don't make it public, make it private, then only you can listen to it. Or maybe you want to be an anonymous podcaster. Well, that'll be really great. Okay. Miss, can you type the podcast name, please? We will recommend some podcasts after this. We'll get into that. Okay, which is our next slide. Here you go. Here are some podcasts that are suitable for teens. Okay, the Socially Awkward podcast. These are all available on any podcasting platform, Spotify as well. Spooked is for horror stories. This is Aisha Trying, was actually recommended by Mr. Asri, which she is a Malaysian, and I think she just went to the UK to continue her studies, a young adult there. Adult-ish is for late teens transitioning into early adulthood, trying to figure out their way. So they're sharing about their daily life. Radio Lab talks about scientific concepts. So if you find reading tedious to keep up with current issues, try listening to podcasts. Keep it in the background as you are doing things. That's another way to keep up to date with current issues. If you find reading to be extremely tedious, listen. Okay, Science Friday, Sci-Fi, current events, scientific concepts are in the news. So I think they're talking about things happening in Russia with, things about natural resources that are affecting it. Very technical things, but it's about how science also is part of it. Part-Time Genius is a commentary. It's meant to be comedy, and they talk about pop culture. So things like, what if this superhero was versus that superhero? What if Iron Man decided to run for president? Things like that. Welcome to Night Vale is where they tell stories. It's storytelling, basically. They tell about horror and conspiracy theories that happen in a fictitious town called Night Vale. Very nice, very mysterious. I like the vibes. If you can't get in touch with any, platforms like Spotify and things like that, there is this group on Telegram. This group is called English Podcasts, and they actually do share recordings from podcasts. And what's good is that in this group, they also share the transcript of the recording. So you can listen and read at the same time. If you're not sure about how certain words are pronounced, this can help you. Okay, this can help you a lot. All right, I hope this is a good starting point for you. There are more. Usually when you start looking for media online, they'll start recommending to you new things. So once you find something you really like, a genre that you like, you'll kind of fall down a rabbit hole that leads to more of it. And hopefully this weekend, if you have some time, try looking up for podcasts. Most comedians also have podcasts if you're into comedy, stand-up comedy, that type of thing. Okay, podcasting for teens. Do check if the content is suitable, before getting really into it, right? So at this point, we have come to the end of our webinar, a bit early, but let's spend some time now in the chat. Can you tell me, what have you got to take away from today's webinar? Okay, what is in your mind now? The first thing in your mind that you've learned from today?
Okay, Miss Allison.
Mm-hmm.
We are also going to put a feedback form in the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, please fill in the feedback form. So as you think, if you're done thinking, and if you can also fill in the feedback form for us.
Yeah. Please do let us know if there's things, you want me to improve on, things that I did that maybe were not clear. Yeah, put that in the feedback form so that I know what to improve on in the future.
If you have any questions as well, you can just type in the chat box, so Miss Allison will get back to you on that.
Yeah. Oh, Arisa, sorry, my former student, my former homeroom student. Hi, Arisa. She messaged me, Madam, I'm watching your webinar. Hi, hope you're doing well. She used to be in Muka and then she transferred. I think she's in TGS now. We miss you. We're going to have a picnic soon for our homeroom.
A little reunion.
Oh. Okay, anybody sharing what they have gotten? I got to learn what the correct way to answer speaking test and pass it with flying colors. Yes, flying, sparkling, brilliant colors. I also learned many techniques to improve my speaking skills. Okay, good, good. Remember, speaking excellence is possible. It can be done. You can do well by practicing. Okay, speaking is a skill that you must practice if you want to get good at it. It's not scary once you practice it a lot. It can be done. Believe me, it can be done. Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to share? Okay. I've learned how to be confident in speaking. Oh, you're very welcome. Practice, practice. Don't wait till the day of the test and then you do it. Okay, keep practicing small steps, but constantly you will be good at it. and you will be excellent after you are good at it. Through practice, practice, practice. From the webinar, I managed to understand the correct way on how to do well in the speaking test. Also, I get to know many applications and websites that can help me in improving my grammar and vocab at the same time having fun studying English. Okay, good. I hope you do have fun studying English because English is fun. It's the most fun subject out of all the subjects. And English teachers are the most fun teachers out of all the teachers.
Who agreed?
I will listen to your Spotify also after this, okay? But it's kind of been on. I haven't recorded anything new since last year. But you're welcome to listen to it.
Are you going to record new ones then, Allison?
I don't know, maybe. I might. I need to find inspiration first. That one. It's fun to do. I really do enjoy doing podcasting, but it was taking time for me to edit it. So that was what took the time. But I enjoyed it because it helped me to reflect. It helped me to clarify my thoughts. Although it's in English, English is an easy subject to score. I learned we shouldn't take it for granted. Indeed. And you shouldn't take your English teacher for granted either, isn't it? That's when you don't use it, isn't it? Okay, if you do want to get in touch with me, here's my email address. I have 2 email addresses. The mara.gov.my one is my official work address. My personal one is allisonpauliya@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram, Madam Ellie, but I also have not updated that in a while. But I do respond to messages there. My podcast is Madam Ellie Speaks. And if you have not joined our Telegram group, please do join. All the recordings will be shared there. All the slides from today will be there as well. And also a booklet that we use, that we compiled here for speaking practice will also be shared in there. So if you have your speaking test coming up, those resources might be useful for you, parents, teachers, and students. All right. Anything else that is being said there? Yeah, also English teachers not to be taken for granted. Taboo and Bingo Baker apps are quite fun and adorable. Okay. Yeah, I hope it is fun and adorable and also useful. Fun is good, but fun must be useful for it to be effective. Okay. Anything else? Parting comments? Do make a podcast of your own if you have time. It really helps to, you know, sort out your thoughts, not just for your language development skills, but for mental health reasons. And you don't have to make it public if you are shy. You want to keep it to yourself, that's okay. All right, I think that's most of the comments done. I don't see any new comments coming in. So is it okay if we end our webinar here? Or unless there are people who still want to ask questions?
Currently, there aren't any new questions coming in. So just a reminder for everyone, do fill in the feedback form and do join our Telegram group as well. I think somebody shared the link before. Because we will put all our resources there. You can access Miss Allison's booklet and also the recording.
Yep. Okay, having said that, shall we draw our webinar to a close today? Thank you, everyone.
Okay, sure.
Thank you,
Okay,
team.
thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Allison. So that
Good
has
luck,
been
everyone.
really insightful.
Practice. Make sure you practice.
Yep, those are very wise words. Practice and all the best. Okay, so thank you, Madam Allison. That has been really insightful. And I believe this has paved way for meaningful discovery for lots of us. So thanks again to our speaker, our moderators, our KPPs, and the Secondary Education Division, Mara, for organizing this webinar. So before we go, please don't forget to fill in the feedback forms. Okay, thank you guys. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.